Hello everybody and welcome to your Artio solo guide. So we're going to be grabbing ourselves that nice Vamp Shroud, get ourselves a chalice of healing, and of course the hand of the gods in order to help out with our blue buff. Now over in the solo lane, looks like we're going to be against a Gilgamesh probably this game. I don't inherently need the Sunder. I could go a Blink right now. Both are going to be viable, but I will grab the Sunder now, and I'll get the Blink as my second relic this game. Not gonna need beads or anything like that. So Artio, a lot of Guardians right now in solo have been probably popping up in your games. A good chance that Artio is one of them, and that is because Vamp Shroud being so strong right now, giving so much sustain, has really brought a lot of Guardians over into solo lane, and with the upgrade of Blood Soak Shroud being so strong, it also means that they transition well into the late game. A lot of Guardians' problems were that they were good in the early game, but then couldn't transition really into the late stage of the game from the solo lane, but now they can because they've got all of this sustain, which actually makes them a formidable frontline opponent. So for Artio, because we've got so many abilities, she actually benefits a lot from this current meta. And on Guardian solos, I really want you to focus in on the damage aspect. I want you to go for the poke, because you'll get in situations like this where you will grab yourself a very, very quick first blood. The reason why you can do that is because all of these minions trying to do damage to you, it honestly doesn't matter that much, because you're gonna sustain up more damage than they're outputting with every ability. Also, warriors right now tend to either go Bluestone or Fighter's Mask. In both of those, you are gonna be able to outbox pretty easily, because you're still going to get good damage. You're going to have a little bit of physical protection, and so the damage output that they're going to do to you is going to be nothing close to just your sustain that you are able to get over with it. Now, I do need to be a little bit careful that I don't like get kicked into his tower or something, but as long as his tower is down,
enemy missing,
we should basically, a lot of towers down, as long as his kick is down, we should basically always win this trade. Hey, if his tower was down, it'd be really hard to get kicked in the tower, to be fair. So on Guardian solos, we're going to be focusing up, of course, on getting tanky, getting frontlining, and also CDR. CDR is where a lot of our damage is going to come from as we get into the later stages of the game. We're basically just going to be abusing the fact that we provide a lot of CC for the team. We're not going to do as much damage as like a capped out Bluestone warrior, right? Because they're going to have all of that kind of enhanced damage. But we will be able to sustain our brains out and bring a lot of CC to the table, especially on somebody like Artio. We've got the root, we've got the cripple, we've got the stun, we've got heals for our team, so we've got sustain, all sorts of good stuff.
An enemy has been
So for our first item, you have a couple of options, but in general, Breastplate of Valor is going to be the way to go. You get a bunch of physical protections and mana, because you're going to be a mana hungry hippo on these Guardians. Luckily, you've got the blue buff, and that early Breastplate of Valor will help out a lot, as long as you're against another physical character in solo. Chances are you're going to be against a physical character in solo plus a physical jungler. In this game, we are against a Gilgamesh and a Bastet, which means that we can really get on that physical defense hype train early and not have to worry about those magical defenses until a little bit later. Now, I do want to make sure that I fully clear this wave before I back, so I don't miss out on any XP. Do a little drive-by, a dash right there. So on Artio, for our leveling, Artio's ultimate is not actually something that you really need to put points into. Some people will put like 1 point into it just to have the little bit of MP5 and movement speed per stack. I, for one, basically don't put any points into it. I would much rather max out my following abilities in the order of 1, 3, 2, 4. So 1 is your main damaging ability. It's going to be your main wave clear, lane clear. It's going to be your main jungle and PvP damage. Then the 3, because it's going to be some more damage from your druid root as well as your dash. Finally the 2, and then the ulti. I just don't think the passive is actually that important on Artio, so I tend to wait until the very end. Like I said, if you want to put points into it, you could probably put 1 point into it, but you really don't need any more than that until the end of the game, where you're just putting in points because you got nothing else to put it into. Artio's 2 is also really nice to get leveled up because it increases the amount of CC that you get from the ability. It increases the cripple duration from 4 to 6 seconds, which is a big deal. And it also is going to increase the stun duration from 1 to 1.4. Not to mention, it also increases the debuff and the bear self buff that you get as well. So a lot of value from ranking up the 2. Although I typically do it after the damage. So my Artio level order is 1, 3, 2, 4. Obviously on Artio, she is a stance switcher, so you're going to be switching back and forth. Always keep in mind that you can see the cooldowns of your other stance right over here on your little passive bar, so I can see all 3 of my abilities, and it'll let me know what the cooldowns are, so I don't have to like switch over to see if I've got my abilities up. I just peek down really quick, take a gander, go, oh, my abilities are up, so I can switch back over and go use them. That goes for all Smite stance switchers, Hell, Woojer, Artio, whatever. All the other stance switchers that you can basically think of. They've pretty much all got that little UI tidbit. So I'm going to start getting a lot of pressure onto Gilga now. As long as I use my stun correctly, I should be able to stun him out of his kick, which means that I don't even really have to worry about the tower anymore. When you do get a lead in solo, try to go into the enemy jungle as much as you can. Just try to take a little bit of farm here and a little bit of farm there. If you can get farther into the jungle and go back towards their back camps and start stealing some of that farm, that will help to put their jungler behind, and it's a lot better than taking your own jungler's farm. Preferably you don't go back into your own jungler's farm, so that way you're not siphoning anything from them. But if you do go up into the enemy jungle, you can start to take some XP away from theirs, which doesn't obviously help you out that much. The amount of XP that you get isn't crazy. It's obviously better than nothing, but it can really help out your team as a whole. It's kind of like Totem. Totem isn't really about you in the solo lane. It's about helping out your team elsewhere. If you can do that enough times, and now the jungler's behind an extra half a level, an extra level against the enemy team, then maybe a gank doesn't go quite as bad. It relieves pressure off of your duo lane, off of your mid lane. Didn't quite land the kick right there. That's okay. It's not really gonna matter that much because I've got so much sustain from the rest of my abilities. You can see that even with a full drop of his kit, I am at half HP, and that's basically in the worst case scenario right now. So because he's a physical damage dealer and they've got a physical damage dealer in the jungle, my next item is going to be a Tyrannical plate helm. You're going to see this on pretty much every Guardian solo right now. 2,400 gold. It's not that expensive. The tier 2 is actually really expensive though. So a lot of the times you're probably just going to end up waiting until you've got the full cash in order to get the whole thing. This is going to give you a lot of damage while also continuing to give you some more physical defense, and you get that CCR online, which is very nice as well. And you're going to be buffing up your minions, make it easier to take that solo lane tower. for the gods that we like to be Artio against, we like to be Artio against any god that is very reliant on movement abilities. So this is going to be less about the direct god that you're facing in solo lane. Honestly, you do really good against just about everybody in solo lane. You've got the built-in interrupt, so you'll wreck a Guan Yu or anybody that has a channeled ability that they use to clear, like a Cabrakan. You've got a bunch of sustain. At the absolute worst, you should basically neutralize the solo lane, even if you're not comfortable over in solo. The way that I like to think about Artio is the chalk of Guardians, where she's kind of there to just make your solo lane life that much easier. She's a great god to pick if you just want to not feed over in solo and still provide value to your team later on, because you just do it through the form of CC. Gonna dash myself over at this Gilgamesh. Hit him with another round of abilities. Because I've got all the CC from the blue buff and whatnot, now I'm gonna switch over and I'm gonna use my cripple. Also gonna throw down a Sunder. As long as he's in that cripple range, he's not gonna be able to get away, but I'm gonna get kind of ragdolled through all of this. Throw down a little stun on the Basta, start to dash myself away, leaving plenty of time for my team to rotate over and help out. Now, reminder that your 3 on Artio is a heal just for you, but your 1 is a heal on the whole team. So if you hit an enemy god with Artio's 1 in Druid stance, has to be an enemy god, that will be a heal for your whole team.
Enemy ultimate down.
You're on fire.
Compared to your 3 in Druid stance, this is gonna be a heal just for you.
Okay.
So back into the gods that we're good against. Obviously, the place that you want to be picking Artio is against gods with a lot of movement abilities, aka the Fenrirs and Circuits of the world, because they can have multiple abilities that are interrupted by Artio's cripple, which is really the strongest part of her kit. So if you can't use Brutalize or Jump, or in Circuits 3, she can't use her, a case she can't use her 1 or 3 either. That's where you're going to get maximum effectiveness. But any gods that utilize leaps or dashes, you're going to be very good against. Which means that the gods that we really don't want to go against in Artio are the gods that we're not going to be able to bring that cripple effect to the table. So anybody that relies on movement speed enhances is usually not a good fight for us, or has a lot of CC immunity. So like a Raven isn't a good matchup for us because he doesn't use a movement ability that isn't CC immune. His 2 gives him that little bit of extra movement speed. His ultimate is a giant leap, but both of those you are unable to actually cripple. So it's not really a good matchup. And Arachne doesn't really have a dash or a leap. She has the ulti, which makes her go faster and get over walls and stuff, but she's CC immune. She's got her webs, which make her faster, undo your slow, all of that. Those are the type of gods that aren't really what you want to be going against. So once we get to this stage of the game, this is basically now where we're getting to rotation o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and back it up. I'm gonna get myself a talisman of energy, and I'm also gonna get a blink for the initiations, as well as a sentry ward. And I'm gonna call for the attack the Gold Fury, because I am now gonna start making a rotation. If you are winning the solo lane,
Yes.
go up, clear a wave, and then rotate over to the objective. Almost always gonna be this Gold Fury. Give your team that presence over at the Gold Fury. If they go for that fight, now they probably don't have their own solo laner there, and you get to have a 5v4. So even if you don't end up committing to the Gold Fury, you can still commit to the fight and just take the 5v4. So Talisman of Energy right now is one of the best magical solo lane defense items in the game, in my opinion. I would recommend, if you don't know what to build for magical defense in the solo lane, it is always a safe go-to item. And as a Artio, this is going to provide the extra movement speed and attack speed to my team, which is going to be very helpful. One, movement speed for everybody, but two, the attack speed for the Cupid. Also a very good item if you have some extra auto attackers on your team. Maybe you've got a Chronos middle, maybe you've got a Mercury in the jungle. Talisman of Energy, always a fantastic pickup. Whereas an item like a Shogun's Kusari, you really only want to pick up when you've got a team that has a bunch of auto attackers. A Talisman of Energy is really an item that you want to have one on your team every game, no matter what. It's usually going to be the solo laner's job in order to buy the Talisman of Energy, but every once in a while, a support will buy it. You only need one, you don't have to have two, but it's got great stat efficacy, a bunch of magical protection, a bunch of HP, and then movement speed, as always, one of the strongest stats in the entire game. So if you can give out movement speed to your entire team, then you want to be taking that opportunity. Also, just generically good tanky stats. Now on Artio, I don't recommend getting Pridvin. Pridvin is an item that procs on your stance switch. Obviously, Artio stance switch, not a super opportune time to be proccing that Pridvin, because we want to be using it all the time, which means it's just not super efficient. So we're going to take ourselves right now into a Winged Blade, and also you don't really need 40% CDR on solo laners, assuming that you are going to continue to get a blue buff. That's another 10% CDR at the end of the game. If you've got a blue buff enhanced, first of all, you've already got the 40%. But even if you have regular blue buff plus a red pot, now you're at 40% CDR as well. So I would say 20 to 30% CDR is kind of the sweet spot for solo laners to make sure that you're not overcapping. So I'm gonna be grabbing a Wing Blade this game. This enemy team has a lot of slows. And one of the few things that will probably be able to kill me is if I get slowed to oblivion. So I'm gonna try to dash right through this Gilgamesh ultimate so I can get back towards my team and try to peel. I'm gonna throw down the cripple onto this Gilgamesh so that way he cannot jump back onto my Ryzen. So the nice thing about being a Guardian solo is that in these late game team fights, I don't have to just be a frontliner. I can also help peel in the backline. Especially with a kit like Artio, I throw down my cripple, I throw down this CC. I can get a lot of use of just going back, sitting near my hunter, and trying to help keep him alive. So if you have a hyper carry on your team like a Kali, this could be a great opportunity to just stick by her side, help keep her alive. Maybe you've got a hybrid carry Thoth in the mid lane, maybe you want to sit by him. And it's also going to depend on your team composition as well. This game, we have a Geb, who is obviously a very defensive support. So most of the time, it is probably gonna be his job in order to actually peel, leaving me with more ability to go dive and zone out their damage dealers. Now they are actually coming in onto this, so we should probably actually get off of this fire giant. We are too low. We don't want to get too much lower than we already are. We just don't have quite enough damage right now to burn the fire giant. Bazet just got a little bit greedy actually coming all the way up to that. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do my blue buff to make sure I've got that full 40% CDR. Now we will get some more physical protections from leveling up our vampiric shroud. A reminder that when you get it, gives you quite a bit of physical protections. So we're going to get another 55 from that. And also a reminder that Wing Blade gives magical protections. People forget this all the time, but you do get 30 magical protections from the Wing Blade on top of the HP and the extra crowd control reduction, which is always nice. So as we're moving into the end of this build, we're going to have near those 200 protections. Magical defense this game, not that big of a deal for me, obviously, focusing on the physical defense because they've got 3 physical damage dealers and one of their magic damage dealers is their support Sobek. So really only have to worry about that magic damage from the soul. Now Sobek is heading over towards Fire Giant. I need to make sure they don't go try to burn it. My team is just doing the Gold Fury, which is fine. I don't want to put myself too out of position, so I'm just going to start to dash away on this one. Ooh, I'm actually going to get plucked right back into that Gilgamesh combo, but luckily I am very, very tanky. Just going to throw down some abilities over here onto those heartbeats, heal up a little bit more. Gonna try to stick around with my team so I can still use CC, but hopefully not close enough to get plucked, he says, as he gets plucked. Luckily, there wasn't that much follow-up for them because the majority of them were already dead. And if I can get a quick shout out to Wingblade, that would be fantastic. Still sticking around because they have got a Bastet coming up right behind them. So I'm trying to let them know that an enemy is incoming. I'm going to blink in, use my stun, and then go for my cripple. And now we should be able to do the Fire Giant. I can't really tank this, which means I am going to be on zoning duty, just making sure that the Medusa isn't coming up to us. I can't zone her that hard because I'm low on HP, but I can do a better job zoning her than I can taking the Fire Giant right now. Now that I see her on the map, I am free to leave. Reminder that as a character with sustain, you do not need to leave the fight just because you are low on HP. A lot of the times I will see people, they'll be at half HP, they'll get too afraid, and so they'll start to back up. If the fight is going to continue anyway, there's a good chance that you can hop off into the jungle for a second, maybe wait for somebody's cooldowns to be down, and you can jump right back into the fight without necessarily backing. Sticking around there provided a lot more CC for my team. I was allowed to blink back in, go for the Bastet. We force her bead. All kinds of good stuff. And this is going to be especially true once we finish up this blood-soaked Shroud. A lot of people seem to think that the blood-soaked Shroud only works on enemy gods. No, 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 no. This procs on minions as well, which is where you're gonna get all of the crazy late game sustain from. So you walk up and use that ability on a wave, and all of a sudden your healing is ridiculous. So as this last item, this is basically an entirely flex item. You could go a Lotus Crown to get a little bit more physical protection for you and your team. You could get a little bit more damage on you by going something like a Void Stone. You could help out your team a little bit more, getting a Shogun's Kusari if you felt like that is what your team needed. You could even get a little bit selfish and go to something like a Mantle of Discord. This game, I feel like my damage output is pretty good, so I'm going to grab myself a Void Stone, which is going to help out not just me, but also my Raijin in that magic damage department. I'm also pretty confident right now that my physical protections are going to be enough this game, so a little bit more magical defense just in case the game gets extended out and the soul damage really comes online. Certainly wouldn't hurt. Can never have too much magical defense against the soul. So I'm going to kind of split up this mid, make sure we have 2 waves pushed up. You always want to make sure you've got 2 waves of creeps pushed up. That way you have options for split pushing over by the Phoenixes. And just try to get out as much poke as I can. So I see that my team is going in for the fight over here. Bastet has jumped in, which means I'm going to go to the location that I know she's going to be jumping back to. Her beads are down, which means that should be a quick kill for us. Now I'm going to throw down a Sunder in the backline onto this Gilgamesh. Give us some more damage onto him. He's going to try to jump away, but I was ready for that. Gonna dive myself onto this Medusa, go for the stun, switch over to the cripple stance. Now she cannot dash away. Throw down that last Sunder towards the Sobek. Not gonna hit, but we are gonna be able to put away the game regardless. So right there, we've got plenty of cooldown in our build, so we just get to spam back and forth with a bunch of CC. In this particular fight, I go for the dive. I get on their carries. I pay attention to the Bastet's abilities, so we start off with a quick pick because she has to jump back, obviously away from the fight as she gets down low in HP. We get a quick pick. Gilgamesh dives in. I've got the Sunder. Now I throw down the Sunder on the backline tanks. He's too squishy. He's got to get out, so we're set up for that as well, guys. And your Artio gets to be one of the more annoying gods in the game. Just make sure you get yourself that Breastplate of Valor online early for the CDR, unless you're against maybe two magicals. If you were against like a magical solo and a magical jungler, which is exceedingly rare right now, you'd probably want to start off with a magical defense item with a little CDR like a Genji's guard, guys. And that is your Artio solo guide. Thank you for supporting the Twitchiest community. If you'd like to see more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and always hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you for all your support and have a Twitchin' day, y'all.